your hands all up in the air.
Season 4, Episode 10. It's the last episode of the season, which, man, the season's been like, what, 2 years?
About that, yeah.
Yeah. This is like the last season of The Sopranos.
That's right. It's just going to cut
It's even cut the
cut
black.
the black right in the middle of a sentence.
Can I just want to say, sitting here with four really, really smart, like real
Where?
smart,
Where?
like real smart, stable geniuses that we have here on this panel. Very smart.
Oh.
I've heard this. Very smart, stable geniuses here.
That's us.
He's dating the episode.
The Digital Press Podcast. Hopefully by the time this goes live, we haven't been wiped out in a nuclear blast. Thankfully,
Happy
I
New
think
Year,
we're all,
everybody.
we're all pretty close enough to where the New York blast radius would hit that we'll all be vaporized in a matter of seconds. A painful and sweet release.
We will. Well, actually,
2018.
because of where we're sitting, we will actually wind up like Mike's former basement. Video game collection.
Half melted.
So like games melted on us, different systems and consoles.
It's gonna be like
We'll be like the Toxic Avenger.
We'll all be one body, four heads.
Ah.
Well, we do have these boxes of Super Mario cereal to protect us.
Yeah.
They have amiibos inside, so hopefully those
That'll
will defend
block
us.
the blast.
Do we have any old refrigerators from the 1940s? We can jump into.
Hey, that was my joke.
That was George Lucas's joke on the fucking
write
world, or Spielberg, whoever.
No.
You know, I don't. That film doesn't exist. I've erased
It's
it
not
from
that bad.
memory. It's painful.
Can I ask you something?
You can.
Do you feel like the porgs, those little porg guys in The Last Jedi?
Oh, the birds
little
things?
birdie.
Spoiler alert: there are porgs in the Last Jedi. For those of you who haven't seen the Last Jedi, there are porgs.
Or don't follow Mark Hamill's Twitter, because even before those things were revealed, he was going nuts about them.
Well, so, by the way, if you ever have a billion-dollar franchise and you're looking to promote it, you might not want to hire Mark Hamill to be part of the cast. I don't know. But we love Mark Hamill. So the porgs, the little penguin-looking things, right? So I just, when I saw them, and this is not video game related, but the first thing I thought about was, I'm watching this now. Whenever Frankie sees this movie, I just imagine him like looking at it like and grimacing, thinking back at the groundhogs from.
These are so much better, though. These are a lot better.
No. When I saw the groundhogs in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I usually deny any that movie even exists, but I will share my recollection of the groundhogs. When I first saw it, I immediately just thought of Caddyshack, and
Bill Murray pops up.
yeah, I mean, then we got like the opening. It's like the opening scene in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and I was like, we're starting off with something that makes me think of a great Harold Ramis comedy, but it's all downhill from there, and it doesn't. Oh God, don't make me think about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, please.
Fine.
So, 2018 is
Did anyone
here.
see the new Shia LaBeouf movie?
Is there any? I love, if you haven't seen the music video by Rob Cantor called Shia LaBeouf.
Oh, yeah!
That is fantastic. It's about him being an actual cannibal.
Yeah, it's great.
And it's a great song.
I think I think they did like a performance of that song. They actually got him to come on stage.
Don't ruin it! Spoiler alert! Watch the music video.
But the craziest, now we're really off topic, but the craziest was they did the music video, I forget which band did the music video of Ralph Macchio and, what's his name, William Zabka, reenacting their Karate Kid roles in this music video, which was goofy. And now they have like a new show.
That's funny.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's coming out. I don't know if it's actually a Karate Kid. I don't think it's actually it's not nothing to do with Karate Kid.
It's like a reality show.
Yeah, it's like a quasi like Mark Maron type of reality show. No, not reality
like
show.
they go on adventures or something like that.
Yeah, but it's like Macho is the nice guy, the quiet guy, and Zabka is like this boisterous jerk off from his like his characters are, and then that kind of interact.
Characters. What else has he done?
Well, it's the same character.
That's actually a question.
I mean, Karate Kid.
After Karate Kid, Zabka did not need to do anything else ever again. That was that's it. That's it. You can't anything. That's the pinnacle. That's the ultimate.
No, it was a great role. I was just asking.
When you get caught smoking pot in a skeleton costume, and you're like, huddled around a toilet with like 6 other guys in skeleton costumes, like very carefully smoking a joint, like, and then Ralph Macchio like looks over the stall, and they're like, "Oh my God, he's
in a shower
kill
costume,
him!
right?
Kill him!" And
In a shower costume.
They want to murder him. Oh, it's awesome.
But the thing about it, he did 4, really off topic, but 4 movies within like a 2-year period: Karate Kid, European Vacation, Back to School, and Just One of the Guys. All 4.
Oh, he was in all those.
William Zabka playing the same exact guy.
That's right. That's right.
All 4.
Well, if you're gonna do something, you might as well do it good.
Well, European Vacation, was he one of the many Rusties?
No, he was Audrey's boyfriend from like the beginning of the movie.
Oh, all right,
Okay.
yeah.
Who was like cheating on her? Spoiler.
Gotcha.
Oh no!
I think the statute of limitations on spoilers for National Lampoon's European Vacation may be up. I don't know. 2018. So 2018 has brought us some interesting bits of classic gaming news.
Yeah,
Not
Legal,
really.
Legal Chameleon came out.
Yeah, it finally
It was
came
a
out.
surprise launch. It was like the Saturn launch.
Yeah.
Just Tom Kalinske was on stage, and he was, and you can get the Coleco Chameleon at Toys R Us right now, $5.99. $5.99.
Yeah, I was about to say, is there a decimal place there?
Yes.
I'd buy it for $6.
I actually would too.
One interesting thing, I will be more than happy to link to the instructions in the show notes on YouTube, but you can also, by the time this goes up, who knows, it may be built into the next iteration of Hackchi. The Super Nintendo Classic, people figured out a way to get external USB storage working on it, which is great. I personally didn't think that was going to be in the cards. It wasn't really necessary with the NES Classic because there was enough onboard storage to fit the complete NES cartridge library like twice over. You could it was minuscule. But Super Nintendo, to fit every single game on it, you're looking at about, for the US region alone, maybe about like 12 gigs or 13 gigs of space. So
it's probably about 8 gigs for the entire library, every region.
Yeah, maybe.
A little bit more, maybe.
I don't know. I think it's more. I think it's larger because I've put it on a
I
bunch
don't
of
think
stuff.
it's that big.
Yeah, you don't think it's that big? I think it's bigger.
It's
like Price is Right.
If you cut out a lot of the extra dumps and things like
Yeah,
that.
no, if you're
that
doing
might
like the good set, then it's like
that might be
a
part
lot.
of my problem is that I don't have a completely cleaned up set. So
If you do like a no intro set, it's probably around like 8-9 gigs.
The EverDrive curated sets.
Right, I have one on my EverDrive that I got from the EverDrive site, and I was pretty sure it was at least 12 gigs. But then they also have the European and Japanese stuff on it. So if we're just talking US set, there's still no. Okay, let's put it this way: there is 256 megs of space on the SNES Classic.
Yeah,
so you were going to have to curate that down any way you slice it if you want to fit.
Well, I mean, you wouldn't
your favorite
include. I
games.
know there's not a lot, but you would not include like light gun games.
Yeah, because they will not work
It's a
at
very
all, no matter
small
what.
percentage.
Right. Or Super NES, any peripheral
Mouse. Yeah.
that would require,
Yeah, no Mario Paint.
anything that had a weird light gun or mouse or any kind of those games. Although, other than Mario Paint, I think there were no exclusive mouse titles. There were
Mario
optional.
and Wario, but that was Japan only. But that's the only other exclusive mouse game.
So some genius figured out a way to get the system to recognize external storage via the USB port, though it's a micro USB, so you need to get a powered micro USB adapter, which you can find on Amazon.
Well, that's how it gets its power.
Yeah, I mean, well, you need to run a power source into the Super NES Classic. So
that's true.
The power source is would be taking up the USB adapter. So you need something with a power pass through. I don't know if it actually powers the USB dongle, but it's a power pass through that powers the Super NES Classic. They're about $5, $6 on Amazon. I picked one up. I still personally haven't hacked my system yet. I haven't even opened my Super NES Classic.
I haven't opened it either.
I like Super NES games a lot, but I don't have the same affinity for the system that I do for the NES Classic, which I was like all in as soon as they hacked it. I was like, I have to figure this out as soon as it's not going to break the system. And Super NES was fine from day one. You use essentially the same software.
Yeah, it's all the same stuff in there.
So this right now it requires, from what I could see in the walkthrough, it requires a little bit of data modification, but it doesn't look like you have to do any kind of like hex editing or weird things. It looks like it can all be done just through basic file changes and whatnot to get it to go back onto the USB drive and then have the HackG software point to the USB instead of point to the thing. But like I said,
still has the same. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
It still has the same problem though with needing only like 30 games per folder or something like that.
Yeah, I believe so. It's. I mean that's more of an issue with active memory. I think active visual memory on the SNES Classic and the NES Classic is that anything
do you know
more
that it's
than
30 because it didn't come with 30 games.
No, it's probably the same hardware. I think it's internally the same as the NES though.
Yeah. But I think just the visual memory tends to choke and it doesn't do anything that damages anything. It just will crash or throw you an error, like a error on screen when you have so many folders or so many games in one folder. Then you're scrolling left and right, and the system can't populate the graphics fast enough or the data fast enough. Just a limitation. But but it'll be nice when I do get around to hacking the Super Nintendo, or anybody who's like me and wants that box to be a complete library so they can take it from place to place, throw it in a case and bring it to somebody's, like my NES Classic. I pull it out and I'm like, this has everything. If you want to play any NES game that you can think of that's not a light gun game or a power pad game, it's got it. Same thing with the Super NES. I'm not interested in picking out my favorites, taking it to a friend's house, and them saying like, "Oh, you don't have Breath of Fire 2 on it," and I'm like, I forgot. I didn't put that on there.
No Pit Fighter?
Exactly.
I actually like that game. Yeah. Not on the SNES and the Genesis, but
I like it on Atari Lynx.
it is a good.
There's not any
It is good on the Lynx.
fighting games really on Atari Lynx. So yeah, that was an interesting piece of news. I will link to the instructions and the devices on Amazon. That's in the instructions. You can link.
Did they make it any easier to get the box art? Because I remember with the NES, it was a pain in the ass.
Oh yeah,
HackG. It would pull from Google or something like that, but half of them are wrong. I have to keep going and changing them.
I don't know if they've improved on it, but I think the basic query that HackG makes is the first image in Google image search for the title of the game. So, or maybe it adds box art to that query, but yeah, you wind up with 75% decent art, and then the rest you have to go through and clean up. Some stuff is completely off base, and some stuff is, just maybe not the best looking version of a box out there, which drove me nuts.
Yeah, when you're dealing with 700-800 games, it can be a pain in the ass.
But I'm so nitpicky about I would find a box that was just crooked by 1 pixel to the left, and somebody obviously scanned a box cover on their flatbed scanner and didn't correct the aspect in Photoshop, and I would go crazy. I would be like, all right, I got to fix that one. And I'd go back in and
I can't wait
clean it
till
up.
because eventually they'll release a 64 classic, but when they're hacking that, I want to see the nightmare people are going through, because I doubt Nintendo's figured out a good emulator for the 64, but there's still games that we can't emulate right on the 64, like Stadium 2 textures don't render properly. You could play the game, but nothing looks right. So it's going to be the same thing where people are going to have to do the thing with the external hard drive just to get the whole library on there. But then there's going to be a ton of games that just won't work, most likely.
I mean, they'll
Well,
just
I
give
think
like
they're
10 or
gonna-
15 of the staples.
Oh
and
yeah,
that'll
what
be
you
it.
get out of the box will be fine. It'll be a small library.
The question
comparison.
I'm concerned with is how many controllers it's going to come with.
I think $100 you get 4 controllers and maybe 10 games.
4?
Yeah, it'll be $100. It'll have 4
I
Nintendo
don't
64
think so.
controllers. Well, that's
I think it'll come with 2, and they'll sell 2 because they always want to tack on extra.
Well, I think they're going to need because I doubt
But then it's not going to be the same box size as the other 2.
No, it can't be. Yeah, it'll have to be a lot bigger.
Well,
Yeah.
no matter what, it's going to have to be bigger because the 64 controller is bigger than the actual box.
Is it?
Yeah.
The 64 controller boxes are like.
But does it have to be the
Exact
exact
space.
same controller? You can't just shrink
People will get
People will
pissed.
buy it.
those,
They'll complain.
People will get
480,
pissed.
They'll complain.
I think they'll put, and I think it'll have more internal storage just by design. It'll have to. I think that's probably an easy swap.
I'm not sure. If it was the exact same hardware, they could probably fit 15 of the smaller N64 games
Probably.
on
Yeah,
there.
but they could up.
They're not putting Resident Evil 2 on there.
They could
No.
increase. Listen, they could increase the memory size.
I think it's only going to have 10 titles on it because it's hard enough to
No,
name.
I think it'll have. I think it'll. There's already been rumors. I think it'll be about 16, and the games are what you would expect. There's going to
The
be
Mario
all,
parties.
Yeah, it's going to be all
Yeah.
the Mario games, the
Star
Zelda
Fox.
games.
No GoldenEye. It'll have
No.
Perfect
Yeah.
Dark.
It'll have
No.
Perfect
No
Dark's
Perfect
rare.
Dark?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
100% Microsoft.
Huh. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, it was rumored, but the
It might have
rumor-
Donkey Kong 64.
Yeah, Nintendo has the rights to that game.
Yeah, that game that they would have, that would be like the only one,
Yep.
rare-wise. Then you have Star Fox,
Mm-hmm.
F-Zero, that are first-party, they'll throw on there.
Maybe both Zeldas.
Yeah, both Zeldas,
Yeah.
obviously. Probably Yoshi.
Yeah, Yoshi's Story.
Castlevania.
Yeah,
That actually
maybe-
might show up.
Yeah.
No,
maybe.
I mean, the rumored list that came out, there was Castlevania, there was a few other... like Capcom or Konami,
Yeah.
third party, where everybody was like, ah.
Capcom put like 4 games out there.
Like a
About Mega Man?
one- Yes, the
Mega Man
I think
64?
Mega Man
Yeah.
may have been
Mega
one of
Man
them.
Legends?
It's just you're looking at it like, oh man, these are garbage.
Yeah, a lot of it they're grasping at straws because a lot of the really good shit is rare.
I think Sin and Punishment might be included.
I've heard that rumor
But-
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That was all in English anyway, right?
Yeah.
yeah, but it
Yeah,
only
it's
came out.
Came out here.
Yeah,
Well,
I think
actually,
they released it on Virtual Console.
They did,
though,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
They probably re-upped whatever licenses
it's-
they need to on that.
like I said, Stadium 2, we haven't figured out the emulator for it.
Pokemon. Yeah, the Pokemon games will be on there.
Well, the Stadium, I'd be surprised because, like I said, Stadium 2 doesn't work. Stadium 1 and 2 were never ported.
They might put.
They were never on
Virtual
Virtual
Console?
Console.
They might put
No.
Pokemon Puzzle League.
No,
that's a-
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
That's a really good game. I love that.
Yeah.
Kirby. Was there a Kirby?
Oh yeah,
game?
yeah,
Crystal
yeah.
Shards will be on it. Yeah.
So they could put
That
Kirby
wasn't
on
very
there.
It's also the Pokemon games. Nintendo the older ones. Usually Nintendo
Hey, you, Pikachu.
doesn't do because
Put a microphone. Because of the microphone.
they usually ignore them because the current games, because the meta is really big, and they're trying to appeal to those people and disregard that there were games prior because they don't. You can't use them in the meta anymore.
Well,
What do you
Wave
mean the-
Race.
what do you mean the meta?
Wave
The
Race,
competitive
1080.
Oh,
Wave Race will be on it.
Yeah, definitely. So
that was a good game.
Maybe
yeah.
probably Pilot Wings. You know, this kind of-
Pilot Wings, yeah.
but-
I was surprised that didn't show up on the SNES.
Yes.
I was actually,
Oh,
I was
right.
much more cynical as far as what I thought was going to be on the SNES. I was expecting like FF2 over FF3, Pilot Wings.
Well, I'm surprised we got a Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna
and
be World
not
Warrior.
Super Street Fighter because
Yeah, I
in
thought
Europe,
it was going to be World Warrior.
but Europe got Super Street Fighter and we didn't. So it's really weird.
interesting.
Yeah.
Japan got
They
it.
probably
Did
went by
Europe get it?
sales data,
both Europe
and I
and
think
Japan.
Turbo is like the
Yeah.
top seller in the U.S. I think
Yeah.
that's the top selling Super Nintendo cartridge.
No, I was pretty happy with the game selection. There were a bunch of things that I really wasn't counting on.
I wish we got it was Tetris Attack in America, but everywhere else got paneled upon.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we
they
didn't
can't, yeah.
because it's not a Tetris game anymore, and they
Don't have
can't
a
get
license.
Nope.
Well, Pokemon Puzzle League is the same game, isn't it?
Yeah, but it doesn't have the
But
Tetris name.
it's the only reason they couldn't do Tetris Attack
Oh,
is
'cause the word
because of the
Tetris,
name,
yeah,
and they
yeah.
couldn't release it here as paneled upon because then nobody would remember what it is until they play
Right,
it.
interesting. Oh, that Tetris company.
That's why I'm expecting Pokemon
ruthless
Puzzle
with their
League.
rights.
Yeah, they can totally do that.
So, that happened, and I honestly didn't think that it could, but it did. So good for whoever figured that out, and I personally hope that they integrate it into the next iteration of Hackchi. so I don't have to do any of that weird file editing stuff. I could just turn on HackG. It says, do you have a USB dongle attached? And you say yes, and then it writes everything to that. Because HackG's pretty idiot-proof right now. I really think they've done a great job with getting that up to snuff. And it's always been, it's never really been possible to brick anything with it. It doesn't touch any of the
you back up. It gives you the option to back up the internal,
and you can even use like somebody else's original kernel. Like you don't even need to put the original kernel that came with your system back on it. You can put any of them on there to reset, get it back to like the original factory settings. But it doesn't touch any of the primary file systems. It just changes the area where there's the rewritable memory where the game data is.
There's only one thing about that. Both the NES and the SNES classics that I really wish that the HackG team could address is that if you want to put on scan lines, it comes part and parcel with that shitty filter, that CRT filter. I want them separate. I want to be able to turn on scan lines without Vaseline on the TV.
Yeah, making it all blurry.
Yeah, well, scanline filters never look they never look right. I don't know. It's like a novelty that people put them in there. I don't know anybody that turns on a scanline filter and goes,
that AVS scanline filter is pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good, but it's also adjustable. You can like change the intensity of it. But I still like I look at it and I'm like, it just doesn't look right. Like there was something about.
Well, yeah, they were physically there.
Right, they were physically lined. They were physically gaps, and the colors kind of bloomed between them in a way that just doesn't happen.
Here's the other thing. When you think about the N64, for instance, there is an HDMI mod that's out there now. I forget the actual name of it.
Ultra HDMI?
Is that what it is?
Yeah, because I can do it.
Okay.
I like how you said that, because I could do it.
So, bring your N64 to Digital Press in Clifton.
If you have the mod.
Oh, if you have the mod.
Leo will be wearing a trench coat in the back alley of the store. Right? He'll open the side of it, and there'll be N64s.
$5, no questions asked.
You're like, hey kids,
Yeah,
you want to buy some HDMI?
Right, so the HDMI mod has been out there now a little while, and one of the things it does on there, I don't have it myself. To me, it's not worth it for me because
really not.
The mod is like $200. It's like $200 something bucks.
It's $150 for the mod, and like if you get it here, we only charge $50 to install it, so it's $200 total. But
do you have to like desolder like an entire?
Nope.
No, it
comes with a ribbon cable that you solder on. I mean, it's easy to fuck up, so you got to know what you're doing.
It draws out
you do have to Dremel out the back.
It takes the raw RGB signal.
Yeah, it takes it out of the actual chip that does it, and then puts it into basically what is a little tiny graphics card.
Now, does that work on all models of the N64?
Yes.
It does?
You have to do the mod differently for every model, but he's figured out a way so that this mod will work on all of them, as long as you know what you're doing.
Okay, because if you have like a SCART cable or the HD retrovision cables or something, and you want to get RGB component out of N64, it has it natively, but you have to do a very, very small mod. I had mine done pretty cheap years ago, but it was only in like the first the consoles that were sold in like the first year and a half that would work, and then the later revisions they got harder and harder to the point, and they were like, well, you can't do it anymore. So it's nice that you can use it now in all.
It's simple enough
factors, but so one of the things that they included on this thing is there's some sort of, I forget the mode.
There's a bunch of different filters.
There's a lot of options on there, all kinds of stuff.
And no matter what, it always still looks like shit.
Right, but there's one.
Well, it's like, was it 240i resolution?
Yeah, I tell people
resolution
all the time.
No, it's not the resolution. That's not the issue. But there's this one mode that does do kind of like a texturing sort of a deal, somewhat like if you played a PS1 game on a PS2 and you turn the what was that on?
Oh, that smoothing?
The smoothing on, or it's sort of like that. So that's the only thing that I personally would find somewhat interested in. But my point is, if they were to do the N64 Classic Do they leave it as is? Do they include I would think that they would have to include some kind of a smoothing option, because now you're not playing on an old. Well, I don't
It's
even know
gonna look like
these are
shit.
CRTs,
Yeah.
but there's CRT over there. But it's not like you're playing on an old CRT anymore. You're playing.
Yeah.
You're playing it on maybe a 60-inch.
It can't hide any of the crimes.
HDMI, yeah,
and
that's
the
the
biggest problem the 64 has, and I tell people this all the time when they inquire about the mod, it is polishing a turd, because you get a lot of games that have actual images that were rendered back then and then put onto the game. No matter what, they're going to look blurry and shitty. Like Mario Party, the models are on top of a still image that is the board, and that board is always going to look like shit no matter what mod you do, no matter how good you, even if you have it in an emulator and you upscale it to fucking hell, it's going to look like shit. The only way to make it look good was to find the raw files of when they made the game
that's
and
why
remake it.
I know that there's like in the N64 emulation community, what a lot of emulators do, they don't emulate the N64 hardware natively. What they do is they offload a lot of the rendering to like the PC's graphics card to basically render it at much higher resolutions.
Yeah.
So
Well, doesn't the Dolphin emulator do that too with the Wii?
This
and
way you can
GameCube
get
and
really
stuff?
good shit out of the Wii. But the N64 too, when you make it look really good, you start seeing a lot of stuff. People talk about the NES of there's shit that shows up on the sides when you have it on a big screen. But like the 64, you get like in Mario Party, you get halos around the characters. They have this white line around them at all times when you make it HD.
I remember playing when Project 64, the N64 PC emulator, was fine. When they finally made a version that could run. Finally, and I remember trying GoldenEye, and I'm walking around. I'm like, and it was funny, the setting, like the scenery, everything looked terrific, but as soon as you got up to one of the characters to shoot them, I mean, they looked. It looked like what was the Dire Straits?
Money for nothing.
It looked like Max Headroom.
Yeah,
it looked like that. It was like the Max Headroom forms with like a like texture art.
It's like the
you got up to
GoldenEye.
the Russian soldiers in GoldenEye, and they went, look at that, look at that.
So it was a bit ugly, I have to say.
There is an opposite of that too. If you play Superman 64 on it, the textures on it are actually better than.
Does the draw distance get better?
Yeah. A buddy of mine was actually playing it on emulator, and he's like, "You have no idea how good the game actually looks on an emulator by comparison to the 64. It's so crazy."
Think about it like if you're playing like one of the Turok games,
Yeah.
where 3 feet in front of the character is fog, for a reason. So when it gets emulated and like bumped up with like anti-aliasing,
Well, that too.
the
The textures they have over the faces there is just really good. It looks like the cartoon, which is what they were going for.
Right.
It's amazing. But when you have it in the 64, it's getting really crunched down. It looks really shitty.
The mod it upscales to the 1080. Because a lot of TVs don't accept 240p signals over HDMI.
Well, there's no such thing. I mean, HDMI is not 240. HDMI is 720 at the least.
That's why Hyperkin and all those other companies are releasing HDMI versions of what they already have, like the Retron HD, and now they're coming out with the Super Retron HD. Before you know it, the Retron 3 is just going to come with an HDMI cable.
Yeah, I mean, Act Games are doing the same. It's because TVs are eliminating...
We've even had people come here. They buy a brand new Retron 3 that came from Hyperkin just a month ago, and they're like, it doesn't work on my TV.
Yeah.
And it's
just HDMI now.
Well, there are TV companies now eliminating coaxial cable jacks and stuff on the back end. Because there's no cable-ready signal anymore. Cable companies
but
want
the
you to buy
antenna.
them. Yeah, but there are still ones out there that do not have coax.
They're finding all kinds of ways to just cut costs. It's same with a dime here. You make 1 billion of them. That's a lot of money.
Anyway, so so there's that. I don't know, any other? I mean, I know of some hardware projects that are.
We can move on to a different topic.
Might be.
What is the state of affairs of the Atari box?
Oh boy, that one.
Yeah, well, I'm curious, morbidly curious.
Well, I mean, that one's kind of like new. I mean, the project is fairly new.
What's the Atari box?
What?
Yeah, I'm actually serious.
It's
I don't know what that
No,
is.
you're not.
Yeah, it's,
We talked about it.
That is.
It's like
Did
the
we?
new Coleco Chameleon, but Atari's making it this time.
Well, it's
Oh,
the
really?
one that has the very, very futuristic design that looks like a 2600.
It's like if you were watching a sci-fi movie that came out in like the early '80s, and they were playing the newest Atari, and that's what it looked like.
It's probably what the Atari 2600s look like in the Blade Runner future.
That's what I'm going
Like,
for.
it
Yeah.
plays like original games.
Well,
No?
it's like
It's an Ouya.
It's most likely
Oh,
going to be
yeah.
like an Ouya. It's got built-in.
Oh, wait, we did talk about
A
that.
built-in operating
yeah.
system, and it's going to have an online storefront built into
Right,
it,
right,
and
I
it's going to
remember
be open source, so people can do whatever.
So an Ouya.
Yeah, essentially an Ouya.
I haven't. I really. I mean, I couldn't. There's no way. The problem is there's nowhere to follow it like legitimately.
Yeah.
Because Atari Age was the big Atari site. Everything that gets mentioned about it is those guys,
Beat it,
making
pummel
fun
it,
of it.
pummel
Yeah.
it into the ground. Yeah,
So-
I mean, and it's probably. I know that they did send out a email late in 2017 that said that the price on it was going to be like $400.
It's going to be a
It
lot.
was
For an Ouya system?
Yeah, it's going to be a really good one, but still, it's like for that price, you can actually build a PC that's a lot better. A lot
But
better.
it doesn't. But it.
Yeah, it's
doesn't
not going
look
to be
like
plug and play either.
No.
So
I mean, so it's
It's
for the
still-
name? Is that what it yeah.
Well, again, the Atari Age, and again, I'm not trying to bash Atari Age. I love the forum. I'm there every single day. But so one of the consensus was, this is how I'm relating it back to the Chameleon. I think a lot of people were serious on there. They're like, well, we don't want, I don't want this. I don't want this nonsense, this Android box. Who cares? But if they sold the actual shell, well, I put the Raspberry Pi in there, and I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah.
But this
So
is
many
the same
people do
thing that
that.
happened with the
The
Chameleon and all those people were like, well, if we could just buy the shell.
Yeah.
oh, it's the classic gaming community.
The Atari box.
I think the problem is like because you're kind of like crossing, you're kind of getting your lines crossed when it's like you're trying to appeal to retro, but at the same time be modern, and it's like it ends up appealing to very few people who have that.
Yeah.
Some people
With
just
very deep
like
pockets.
it's like look, people who are into their Atari, like really into it, they just want the Atari shit.
Yeah.
But
Or something that's $50
People who want
the Atari games.
people want something like an Ouya. They don't want to play Atari games.
I mean, to me, it's almost like if you're a big car guy and somebody buys you a Chevrolet lamp, a Corvette lamp. There's not. I mean, it's a lamp. It's still a lamp. At the end of the day, it's a lamp. But it's got or if you're a football fan, it's a lamp, but it says Green Bay Packers. That's to me, that's almost all it is. There's nothing.
The Atari box is going to have the problem too that the Ouya had, where eventually it's going to be out of date, and if they take too long working on it, when it launches, it'll be out of date, and it's going to really suck with a price tag that high to buy something that is as good or worse than your phone.
I mean, you got to keep in mind that the bell curve of personal technology now is like, yes, game companies still make game consoles with like a 10-year half-life. They want a PlayStation or an Xbox or a Wii or whatever in your house for 10 years, and they want software to become so affordable throughout the course of that 10 years that they make a tremendous profit, and the cost of the hardware to reduce to a point where they make no loss or a profit on that.
Yeah.
But when something like this is announced and then there's like a 4-year development cycle by the time it hits the market, your specs are like gone. Forget it.
Yep.
The Ouya had a bit of that coming out of the gate. It was right there. It was just powerful enough to compete with modern phones and Android tablets and whatnot of the day.
Then a year
later, it was really struggling to keep up with the kind of graphical fidelity.
They don't have the same thing the consoles do with making the money on the games too, because even though Atari Box probably isn't saying this, they're like, oh, we want people to hack it, we want people to make stuff for it. It's like, well, that doesn't make you any money.
Yeah,
And the consoles have the benefit of accessories.
But
You can sell controllers for $60 each.
yeah, and then it worked with PS3 controllers like right out of the box. You didn't need to buy any extra Ouya's
and
controllers.
this is why people aren't nice. They're like, oh, why is Microsoft charging $60 for what is basically the same thing as the 360 controller? And it's like, because they gotta make money. And if you're nice and it's like, oh, it works with everything, you end up like Ouya, and you don't get it. There's no Ouya 2.
Yeah, well.
No,
Oh, well.
there's 100 other Android boxes that sit on your set top that'll run stuff off of the Android.
But they don't
Google
look like
Play
the
Store.
Atari 2600.
Yeah, that's the problem. Here's an interesting thing that I noticed, and I don't know if I'm the only person in the universe that noticed this. There's like a niche community of people who are really into these Bridge Direct little tabletop arcade machines that have been out for the past couple year or so. They made like Pac-Man and Space Invaders to start with just a black and white LCD, and then they started to make ones that actually had a full panel LCD monitor in them that played what was obviously emulated NES games, and in some cases Atari 7800 games. There's a Q*bert, there's a Centipede, and a Frogger that was like a proprietary build of Frogger, but it played great. Played the equivalent of what you'd find on like an NES or 7800. And this year they released two new ones, Rampage and Joust. And on the Rampage board, I immediately noticed in the press photos that it was the NES version of the game, which made sense to me because the Q*bert was a modified version of the NES game made for the little arcade machine, so it would work with the joystick and the buttons. And I said, "Oh, it's the NES version of Rampage. That one's my least favorite. It's not terrible, but it's missing Ralph, and it's the graphics aren't as nice as the Sega Master System one, which has a deeper color palette, better sprites, has all three characters, blah blah blah, better sound." And then I look more closely when people start making videos of it, and I notice, they put the splash screen in there that's like the arcade, and it's got all three characters. Well, that's going to be kind of disappointing when you get to the game and it doesn't have Ralph because it's the NES ROM.
Yeah.
And then I see video footage of the game playing, and it's got the selection screen with all three characters, and it's still absolutely the NES version of the game. But they hacked it or modified it, and they added Ralph. They changed the splash screen, they changed the character select screen, and they changed the sprites. So it's the NES version that in the past Data East had released with only two characters, with George and Lizzie. Now it has Ralph. Now it's like the complete arcade game, but it's trapped in this little machine.
Yeah.
No one's dumped it yet and made it playable or maybe people have dumped it. There is a community of people who hack these things that they go onto the board, they change the jumpers, because usually each game has both games. The Q*bert also has Centipede on it, and Centipede also has Q*bert on it. You just have to change the jumpers. Rampage apparently does not have a second game on it, so I don't know. Maybe it's because the ROM is bigger, because they added the extra content.
Or if they were just making that along with Joust, maybe because it runs different. Because what's the Joust one used?
Joust also has Defender 2, the NES ROM of Defender 2 on it, which is interesting because the Joust machine that they made only has one button, so it's missing the B button of the NES version of Defender 2, so you can't do the Smart Bomb, I think. It's missing a control, but you can solder that button onto the control panel, and so people have figured it all out. But nobody has dumped. I'm waiting to see that if in 2018, if there's enough interest, or if people figure out that, hey, there's a hacked version of Rampage on this thing that could be an NES compatible ROM.
That'd be neat.
That if they could back dump it and get it to run on EverDrive or something, or make repros.
Honestly, why? I mean, you think about it. After all this time, why wouldn't somebody just hacked the NES ROM in the first place?
Lack
Not enough interest.
Character.
There's probably
Nobody
people
cared.
are like,
That's like asking about the NES Donkey Kong. Why not add the
People did.
Did
Nintendo
they?
released a version with that level on the European Wii Virtual Console, and it has been dumped, and you could put it on your NES Classic or EverDrive or whatever, but it still doesn't have the intro, how high can you get? It still doesn't have Donkey Kong climbing the ladder with Pauline. but it does have that board, and
The Rampage probably
Yeah,
is just
right.
like, what are you're gonna play it on an emulator and just play the MAME.
now also in that little tabletop version of Rampage, it's only a one-player game, so did they hack out the ability for a second player to join? So if they dump it, will they have to do more hacking?
Oh, jeez.
Because you can't play two players on this tiny little thing. with
Maybe
only one
the
joystick.
movie will add enough interest, and then they'll do it.
Yeah. About that
I'm
movie.
gonna see that.
What about that
I'm gonna see it
Rampage?
because it's got The Rock, and I love
Yeah,
The Rock.
no,
and-
it's gonna be ridiculous. There's no way they're taking it seriously. I'm gonna get fucking wasted, and I'm gonna go watch it, just like I did Jurassic World.
It's The Rock versus the Giant Ape. That's got to be a
Yeah,
good movie.
no, The Rock is helping the giant ape, and they're fighting a wolf.
That's got to be. Yeah, that's got to be a good movie.
I don't enjoy
I don't care
video
what
game movies. I
don't care what it's
pretend.
based on. I just want to see The Rock.
I
and
don't
the Giant Ape.
pretend. I don't pretend to enjoy video game movies, but I will say this.
Hopefully, it's better than Doom.
Yeah, well, The Rock likes to try. He tries his best with video game movies. I will say this: friend of Digital Press, Brian F. Collin, the original creator of Rampage and designer of many of the Midway arcade games of that era, ones that have that very distinct cartoon style, like Arch Rivals and Rampage and Pigskin Footbrawl and General Chaos on the Sega
yes.
Genesis. He was personally involved in the production of the film.
Good.
So the creator of Rampage was directly involved, and as far as I've seen him report, he's very pleased with what he's seen. I would imagine he's probably seen some complete version of it at this point. He's happy with it. It's his baby, and he likes what he's seen.
You'd have to be too serious to really fuck up Rampage, because it's already tongue in cheek. It's making fun of the kaiju monster movie kind of thing, and they're all silly characters. So it's like, make a silly movie, put The Rock in it, and that's probably why The Rock's in it. He was great in Tooth Fairy.
As long as there's a scene where there's a fully naked person covering their genitals and shuffling off screen, that's all I want from the movie. If it has that one scene in it anywhere,
Well, it needs that and them eating a human. Like, they can't cut that out. The censors would be like, you can't have that. It's not okay.
well, as long as there's no blood.
Yeah, well,
in
they
Jurassic
gotta-
Park, the dinosaur ate the guy in the toilet.
Yeah, well, we need that. We need one of them to reach into a building, grab a person, and just shove it in their mouth. You don't have to see anything, just boom. And that's
Or
it.
reach into a building and grab a giant hot dog, or like a
that'd be great.
toaster.
But it's
where
like
they,
a
electrocute themselves.
like a fake diner thing. It's got a giant hot dog sign, and George is like, oh.
So yeah, that's what we want from Rampage. Hollywood, don't let us down. Please,
A little late.
please don't let us down. We don't know yet. We don't know. This is our wishes. Our wishes of Rampage.
And if everything's according to plan for me, then my expectations will be very low, and my alcohol level will be very high.
So, also in 2017, there seems to be a boon in classic arcades popping up here in northern New Jersey. I know you two have both, Greg and Leo have both been tangentially either experienced them or involved in speaking to the owners, or have anything to report about the state of actual physical arcades?
Well, there's a Yestercades opening in Westfield.
We know the Yestercades in Red Bank very well. I've never been to there's one a little bit further north.
Somerville, yeah. I've been
I haven't been
outside of that one, but I haven't been in it.
The Barcade in Newark, that either just opened or is
And
about
there's
to
another
open.
barcade.
So there's barcades. I'm not a huge fan of the barcade format, but it's a means to an end.
It appeals to a certain group of people.
I don't
It's
shame them. I don't like being in a loud, crowded bar.
It's for the people that like going, not necessarily to clubs, but still loud bars, like a sports bar. But instead of going there to watch football, they're there like, oh my god, I remember Donkey Kong. That was great. Instead of us, that we've got 50 versions of Donkey Kong, play it whenever we want, and drink at our own house, and not get pulled over.
To those people, those games only ever existed in that format in their mind, maybe.
Yeah, and after 1990, apparently some sort of nuclear bomb hit and it wiped out all the classic games, and they haven't existed till now.
Wow. some kind of thing happened and they all got wiped out.
Well, not for nothing, but most of the people in those bars didn't exist in the 90s.
That's
true. Yes.
This is true. There's a Dave and Buster's scheduled to open next
That's
February.
in
at the Willowbrook Mall
Oh yeah, next to Macy's or
in New Jersey.
And
But of course, not classic
Sears.
arcade.
That's
no,
right. Yeah, Sears.
that's like
Sears.
grown-up Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a big Dave and Buster's fan.
Nah, I went to one when I was on vacation in Florida. It was all right since I was on vacation, but I wouldn't go to it on purpose.
If you like claw machines and ticket redemption stuff, Dave and Buster's is the place for you.
I do like
my
skee
friend.
ball.
They got that.
They got skee ball.
Actually, the Yestercades in Somerville has skee ball and some more because it's bigger, so they have more of
Well,
those.
they're West. I don't,
Redemption.
do you know how many square feet they're?
I have no idea.
I know the Westfield one. I don't know if it's going to be their biggest one, but it's
It
a
would have to
big
be.
spot.
It would have to be.
Because I think I know the building. When I was looking at it, I was hearing 4,000 square feet. But when I was talking to Ken about it, he was saying it might even be close to 8, and I think it might be he's thinking of knocking down the walls and expand. I don't know. I don't know anything about what he plans to do, but it's big. It's a big spot, so it could be their biggest arcade.
Now, if Ken, the owner, founder of Yestercades, if you would like to see an interview with him, we did one on the old Paunch Stevenson show. Rob and I, we visited Yestercades about 6 years ago, and we talked to him there, and that's actually what he looks like.
Oh,
Guy
wait.
with the hat.
Yeah. I've seen him before. Okay.
So it's he was sort of the first in the area, at least other than the barcades.
What about this
Yeah.
game vault?
Game Vault's good. I know Dave.
Well, right. So I've been to the Yestercades. I haven't been to the Somerville one yet. It's just the problem is it's from where I live. Or even from like Digital Press. It's literally almost the same amount of time to go there as it is to go to the Red Bank one. So we just always go to Red Bank. So in Morristown, downtown, there is a arcade. I guess it opened a couple of years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah, it's called the Game Vault, which is,
It's in an old bank.
a pun, yeah, because it's literally in an old bank.
Oh, they have the vault. Is
They
that
have
what
the
it is?
vault. Yeah.
And it's great because when you
these
go
cabinets in the vault.
when you go into the vault, he has it like black lights and all.
Yeah.
And in the vault are like games and pinball games and stuff like that are like bank and bank vault centric.
And right outside the vault too is a vault cracker, which is
Yes,
like,
yes,
so
a
it's
safe
like you got to
cracker.
break into it to get into the thing. But
So like Block and Chase is in there.
yeah, and Tron's in there too. I was talking to Dave. The
Yeah.
reason he put Tron in there, one is because the black light there, so it looks better in the closed area with the least amount of light. But also he wants to make the vault look like the.
And Commodore.
He wants to make it look like the actual thing with the spire in Tron. I forget the name of it.
Oh, the
thing they were going
recognizer.
through.
I was thinking,
Yeah.
I immediately went to the classic scene with the giant vault door outside of the Encom building that they break into in the beginning of Tron, and also in Tron Legacy.
That's
Yeah.
one of it. He's very he wants to do a lot of stuff, and it's like there's only so much time in the day. He's great work. He's a great guy, but
He's the only person behind the entire operation, right?
he's
It's
not.
like-
He's really not. He's got help doing it, but he takes a lot of it on himself when he doesn't have to. But
Well, what I would
that's admirable.
say, So what I would say is, there are games that are at Yestercades that I loved as a kid. There are games that are at the different I haven't been to a lot of the barcades lately, but there were certain barcades that had certain games that I preferred. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it is. This Game Vault has like all of them
Yeah,
in one place. It's crazy.
Dave is nuts about specifically appealing to people, not just having a bunch of cabinets, but he has 111 cabinets. And
Is there a Dragon's Lair at Game Vault?
yes, there's a Dragon's Lair, and he actually has it set up so that it can play Dragon's Lair, Space Ace, Dragon's Lair 2,
Cool.
and then there's some other versions of it in there too. I
I'm
think
sure
there's
it's
like
a
5
Daphne.
games.
Probably either Daphne or the Dexter
Don't
board.
think it is. I think it's some sort of special mod that makes it all original.
Right.
Like maybe it's a special Laserdisc or something. I don't know. I didn't ask him too
Okay.
much about it.
Interesting.
But I think it's a original. But
There's a pterodactyl inside switching the disc.
yeah, that's what it is. He actually has Donkey Kong 2, the modded ROM
Oh,
in
cool.
there. That's
Wow.
yeah, it's
I got myself a 5-hour gift card thanks to friend of the podcast, Raul Angel. So I'll have to go check that out.
It's a great spot. Yeah, I've been there lots of times to meet with Dave, and he does a really good job. I haven't been to any of the yestercades to compare, but
You've never been to Yestercades?
haven't been to a single one.
Oh, next
it's
time we
great.
do a field
Yeah.
trip. When the
Well-
weather's a little nicer. Right now
Might
it's
not
like
have to.
sub-zero temperatures in New Jersey.
I'll be honest. One of the best things they have at Yestercades, the one in Red Bank, is Fix It Felix Jr. I'm not kidding.
yeah.
I'm not kidding that I love that
Dave's
game.
got that too at Game Vault. It's one of the first things
It's a
you see when you walk
legitimately
in.
good game.
Yeah.
Well, now that they've torn down Disney Quest in Walt Disney World in Florida, the like 10 copies of Fix It Felix Jr. that were there and beat to shit are probably out in the wild now.
I have a feeling they are because there's a store and arcade. It's not really it's more of a store, but he has an arcade in the back with maybe like 10 or 20 cabinets.
Yeah.
He's in Florida about an hour from Disney World, and as soon as they tore down that arcade, he miraculously got a Fix It Felix cabinet.
Yeah,
so
I'm
there's
sure
no
they
way
were
it's a
up for
reproduction. He has to have an original.
Those need some serious restoration work. The last time I saw them a few years ago, they were in just a sorry state of affairs. I saw them the first year that Disney put them out, and they were gorgeous.
So it's
Yeah.
like the movie. They didn't work.
Oh, and then, years later, you go and you just, like, see that typical arcade damage with, like, people have chewed off the T-molding.
Yeah.
There's, like, bite marks in it. There's no smoking allowed in the building, but somehow there's cigarette burns on all of them.
Someone was nostalgic.
It's great to see screen burn in on a friggin' flat screen LCD. It's like, wow, I didn't know that was even
Were
possible.
those cabs
but-
built from scratch, or were they modified Donkey Kongs?
I think they're modified Donkey Kong. Well, not Donkey Kong's Nintendo cabinets.
Yeah, it could be Popeyes or something.
But
like
I
that,
think they just found a bunch of beat up arcade cabinets and then remade them themselves. Put in there's computers inside of them. They're like old Dell computers that you would see like what an office or a school
Yeah.
would have. So when they offloaded them, they got them dirt cheap. There's one of them inside here now.
Was there?
yeah, we wanted to upgrade the computer, so we did that.
So, yep, we're looking forward to seeing maybe more classic arcade show up in New Jersey and elsewhere in the country in the future. It's
Can't have too many though; they'll suffocate one another.
yeah, they
Yeah.
it's
They're
like
pretty
it's like opening a movie theater within 5 miles of another movie theater. It's bad for business.
Yeah, they're
you gotta
spaced out.
keep them spaced out.
They're spaced out pretty good right now. I think every single one's about an hour from one another, so it's not so much a matter of should I go here or there?
So we'll be back with show and tell in a minute. Our favorite segment and yours too. And it's show and tell time with Mike. Okay, what do we got first here, Greg?
Well, let's go through the inanimate objects
Okay.
first. So this is something I picked up on eBay from Japan. It's an old Hori mini stick for the PlayStation 1.
You whore. You
so
hoary.
And, buttons and I believe it's a micro switch.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Got some nice weight to it.
compact joystick. Yeah, it's actually it's well done. It's Hori's stuff. So
Yeah, Hori always
Well done.
always makes good
I
quality.
just didn't want a
solid state.
gigantic stick, so I got this one. Now, the weird thing was I first went to play, so I knew it was going to work on the PS1, but I said, well, let's see how it works on the PS2.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I had one game, disc base, that was like an arcade compilation, and I think it was the Namco. No, sorry, it wasn't. It was I had it on my hard drive on the PS2 and the open PS2 loader, and it didn't work. The Namco thing would not register it. So then I go through the whole trouble downloading ISO, and I tried it on a couple of Capcom compilations. It was fine.
Yeah, most PlayStation 2 games will recognize a PS1 input controller. It's anyone that has the profile built in for the pressure-sensitive buttons usually won't. Even if it's a game that doesn't use them, if they used Sony's driver for the PS2 standard DualShock 2 controllers, those all have pressure-sensitive buttons, so those usually won't work with that. So,
Mike
what else?
brought some cereal.
Oh, look at this Super Mario cereal. It's an amiibo.
Basically Lucky Charms. It's Lucky Charms.
Yeah.
And people are
So I didn't
scalping these on the internet.
Really?
I hear.
ShopRite's got a bunch of them.
Yeah,
I know.
Well,
That-
at first it was really hard to find because it was like most stores were getting a case of them, which is like 6, and then they'd sell it right away. So people were scalping them online, thinking this is going to be the next thing. Nintendo didn't make that many of them, and then a week later,
It's a cereal.
stores had hundreds of them.
Yeah, this really does harken
General Mills?
back to the late 80s, early 90s, the era of video game cereals where you had Pac-Man
Kellogg's.
cereal, Donkey
Kellogg's.
Kong
Kellogg's.
cereal.
I had somebody at NABA, they were talking about it. They wish Nintendo had done a Breath of the Wild and Super Mario cereal this way. It
split
was-
in half.
Split
Yeah,
in
just
half.
like they did in the 80s. And I was like, yeah, but then they couldn't use the same cereal like they did then, because then Breath of the Wild cereal would be just like solid bran. It'd be real tough like the game.
Breath of the Wild cereal would break after you chew break your teeth after you
Yeah.
chew for a minute, and then you have to go out and find new teeth.
Yeah,
We gotta
exactly.
use the old art from like the Super Nintendo, I guess. Was a
Yeah, they
Mario World.
probably had style
that's,
style guides or like their Nintendo like an art kit that they send out and give the graphic designers at the cereal companies and say make something, and these are the only images that you're allowed to
Yeah.
use. And then you've got the official Mario Odyssey
It's me.
stuff. But yeah, I mean, this
What's
really
with the eyeballs on his hat?
That's part of the game. The hat is alive.
you throw the hat onto stuff, and then you become the stuff, and then you move the stuff around, and
Its name is Cappy.
it's like that popular
Cappy.
popular game Geist, where you possess a dog cereal bowl, a
Yeah,
dog's
and-
food bowl.
People have gone way too into it, and they're like, "Yeah, this is a bad thing. The things that are being possessed by Mario do not want this, and that's why they run away from you."
Yeah, pretty much. And Mario's he's not human sized in the game.
No, they have real-ass people,
There's
and he's
people,
the
and then
gremlin
there's
amongst them.
Mario looks like a demented little troll next to them.
And they also, in Mario games, Bowser, in Mario Sunshine, he speaks perfect English, and in other games, he just roars nonstop. In this game, he does the roaring, but it's kind of enunciated, but then when it comes to names, he'll say the name. So the rah, 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 Mario, rah, 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 Peach.
So it's like Jabba the Hutt. saying,
It's
like,
so weird.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
What was your favorite video game serial from the 80s? Did you have one, or the 90s?
I don't remember. I was real little. I remember they did a Mario World mac and cheese. Or something like that.
Yum.
I was not
Kraft
capable of eating
macaroni and
cereal.
cheese.
Or-
I like cereal. I mean, I still do.
I
Yeah, no,
probably.
but when I 1980s,
I don't remember. I don't remember a
exist.
lot of those. I was aware of them, but I don't remember having them. It was
I think I had
the
them
Mac
all.
cereals.
I had them all when I was a kid. I had the Donkey Kong cereal, which was kind of like an approximation of Captain Crunch. I had the Donkey Kong Jr. cereal,
Pac-Man cereal.
which
I remember
had
that.
Trix type fruit flavor bits. I had the there was Pac-Man cereal, which was very much like Lucky Charms, and then there was a Miss Pac-Man cereal that was similar. And then there was the Nintendo cereal systems, which were just the corn cereal bits in different fruit flavors.
I like Special K.
It's because you're boring. I like bran flakes. I like something that makes me poop. So yeah, the Super Mario cereal. Nintendo apparently has done a better job of keeping this on store shelves than they have with the NES Classic. So they're
Well, I mean, Kellogg's.
they
is
should
probably
get
not interested in-
Kellogg's
yeah,
to
Kellogg's.
manufacture
Kellogg's.
I was
the
going to say,
NES
this
Classic.
is probably just a licensing thing, and Nintendo's just making a little bit of money on it. It's Kellogg's or whoever's making it, and they're like, yeah, as long as people are buying it, put it on the shelves. It costs us 10 cents to make a box.
It's like every Halloween, Blueberry and Frankenberry.
Yeah,
show
they
up.
make a bajillion of those.
the seasonal cereals. So now on to what
Well, it's not plugged in.
Genesis does,
Next.
what Nintendo don't. We have the At Games Sega Genesis Flashback HD, which is the first HDMI Genesis console released by At Games, which is a company that has been making Genesis clones for about a decade now, probably. Comes with RF wireless controllers. These are not IR line of sight, so you can't block them with your hands or if somebody walks in front of the TV.
It's also the first one that is in a Model 1 Genesis shape.
Yeah, they actually paid for the license, I think, too, or they're this is a licensed
Design.
design.
Yeah.
So they, it's not shaped like just a little black box
That
with a
weird
Genesis
thing. It was
slot.
so hard to convince people that was a Genesis.
This does have a slot. It is just a glob top emulated Genesis system, although it's closer to what we've seen in the Retron 5, where it will pull the ROM off of a cartridge, dump it into active memory, and run it through an emulator. It's super, super light, and it's got a kind of a cheap, I don't want to say flimsy, but the plastic doesn't have the kind of density and weight that you find in higher quality clone consoles.
Break it, and then you have to buy the new one next Christmas.
Yeah. It's got the ports on the front if you want to use a standard Genesis controller, but you will be missing out on some of the extra buttons that are found on the wireless controllers, but you can use a button combination, I believe, on the Genesis controllers to access the in-game menus that allow you to do things like rewind about 6 seconds. Yeah, go ahead. If you want to mess around, I believe there's batteries in that controller.
Liar.
Oh, it's this one. I think it's B. The B
Mortal
button
Kombat
selects
section.
games. It's got. No, you can go.
I'm in the thing.
You're in the thing. I think A maybe goes back.
There we go.
And it does have those awful, horrible, unlicensed Flash type games.
Bonus games, yeah. Let's
And
go.
thankfully, they at least relegate those into a section.
You separate them.
So
I can play Bomberman?
They don't have to be mixed in
No, just
with
Bomber.
the junk. It also has,
It's got Sonic and Knuckles, but no Sonic 3.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a
the-
license.
The Michael Jackson involvement.
Yeah.
He's dead, but he's still deeply involved in Sega games.
There we go.
It has Master System and Sega Master System games
And
built
Game
in,
Gear.
and
I like the Game Gear border.
Yeah.
yeah, it's got a nice bezel on
Very
it.
large, though.
Well,
I'm going to lower the volume on this
Yeah.
so we don't blow out everybody's ears.
making it higher.
I am. No.
I don't know. That's not what I wanted to do.
So, yep, this is a Game Gear. Oh, this is an exciting Game Gear game you picked here, man.
I picked Tales of Adventure. I never played it. I just heard it was good. I thought it was a There we go. I was going to say, they can't make it. I guess so.
So it's it's very crisp HDMI output. If you get down to it, I'm sure that people who are familiar, very, very familiar with Genesis games, very familiar with Master System games, very familiar with Game Gear games, will find inconsistencies in the color palettes, inconsistencies with the audio.
Let me...
It's vastly improved audio from their previous Firecore emulation, where the music on every single Genesis game would be wildly out of tune.
Actually, now that I look at it, they don't have Sonic 1 or 2 for the Game Gear here. It's kind of weird to have Tails and not Sonic 1 and 2. Licensing, probably.
Nah, I just figured it was redundant.
Saving it for next year's model, maybe.
No.
Sounds a little better in this one.
It's still tinny.
Still a little off, yeah.
Yeah.
Tinny.
It is stereo output, though. It's not mono.
Yeah, so, and then, very recently, someone actually opened one of these up and hacked it a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still a pretty involved method of getting at that.
Right, it has a USB micro port on the main
Yeah.
board. This is apparently running in an Android environment, so you can dump the contents and unpack them, and then you have to have them running in a simulated Android environment on your computer, and you can add software to it, manipulate it, put it back together, repack it, and load it back onto the system.
Yeah.
But of course, there's a chance that you could do some major damage in the process and screw everything up to the point where nothing will work. I'm waiting for a graphic interface,
right.
like something similar to what we've seen on the NES Classic and Super NES Classic. It has save states, which is nice.
Oh, it turned scan lines on by mistake.
It has
Are we
scan line
trying
filters.
Cartridges? What are we doing?
Yeah, if you
Yeah,
want
let's
to,
try
try a
cartridges. How's that
cartridge
work?
game,
You gotta
General
shut it
Chaos,
off.
Yep.
because that's the one that I'm...
which one?
General Chaos.
General
I
Chaos.
think that's the least likely to work. It's usually these EA games have trouble with this system.
There we go.
Yep. Bleep. Bleep.
There we go. And it's gonna now it'll dump the game into memory if it works.
Loading
Okay.
General
General
detected.
general chaos. Nothing specific, just
Wow.
general
Wow.
chaos.
All right.
Bum, 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 bum.
I'm sure someone out there is in the process of compiling a compatibility library with this thing.
Yeah, there's got to be something that doesn't work.
Well, again, I think they made the right choice in getting the mold to look like a Model 1 Genesis, obviously going to HD, and I would assume that from what I've heard, that they will be making some hardware and software improvements for next year, so I'll revisit whether I purchase one then.
I don't know what I'm doing.
So I just want to point out.
Yeah.
If I go back to the menu here, quit the game. You can leave the cartridge in. You can quit. You need to
Quit.
push down.
Oh.
So, quit the game. If you go to the game list on the Sega games,
Oh, it's
A I think goes back.
That's weird. You can't use the D-pad for that.
no, the D-pad does the menu.
Okay, so go up to the Sega games. Then go down to the P,
right.
or okay, the page right, a couple times. Keep paging over.
Oh boy, columns 3.
Keep going. It's got all the Golden Axe games, but not
Right, sorry.
no Streets of Rage. Here we go.
Fantasy stuff.
I just want to point out that it has Phantasy Star 1 for Sega Master System,
Yeah.
which is not only a valuable game, but a great role-playing game. So, if for no other reason you're looking for a copy of Phantasy Star and you don't have the PS3 or Xbox 360 Sega Sonic's Sega Genesis collection, which
Yeah.
it's an unlockable on those, or a Wii, it was available on the Virtual Console, this is an option to play Phantasy Star. It also has Snail Maze, which
Oh
was
yeah, I heard about that.
built-in
Built-in Master System.
Master System
game.
BIOS game.
Shining Force ain't cheap either, too.
Right.
Shining Force 2.
I'm partial to Psycho Fox. Also, I think
That's a good
that's a
one.
neat platformer. So it's got an interesting selection of games. I
mean,
I bought this thing on a whim, and I'm probably never going to use it, but it's not the worst thing in the world. It's not perfect. There are likely some minor audio-visual things that experts will be able to pick apart and complain about, and they're more than entitled to do that. But for the average person who wants a Sega Genesis or a Sega Master System
That's not right.
library on their TV, just an all-in-one plug-and-play library, this is much better than previous offerings.
No, down.
I'm trying.
Somebody
to
plug
All
this
right,
in,
all right.
other than Frankie.
Mike, did you play? So, the exciting Snail Maze, which was you could play on most first-generation Sega Master Systems if you
Yeah.
turn the machine on with no cartridge in it. Although
Yeah.
there are some Sega Master Systems that don't have any built-in game. There are some that don't have
There's some that
Snail
have
Maze that
Alex
have. Right, there are some that have Hang-On built in, and the Model 2 had Alex Kidd in Miracle World.
And then the
Yeah,
one,
the first one.
well, and then the version I have that came with 3D glasses has missile defense 3D.
Yeah. So that is that, and
Alright, so
Greg,
we're moving on. All right, so I'm Mr. Gadget here. So this is the GameCube HDMI adapter. Now you might look at this and say, "Why would I even want this thing?" But the reason, for me at least, is I prefer to play on the original hardware and the GameCube. And so anyway, this thing is officially called GC Video. They don't really have a website name, but if you can search for something called Zelda X Pro or GameCube HDMI, and you'll find it.
is this the improved version
Yeah.
that will not short out
So
the HDMI?
initially, when he made it, this connector here, he didn't. I guess he solidified it and all there. It didn't have this outer thing, so if you shook the GameCube or something, it could short out the GameCube and break it. So he fixed that. After a few months, he went and fixed it. So what do you need to run it? You need the GameCube, but you need one of the early versions that has the digital AV out, and obviously it has the
I was
regular.
unaware they ever removed that.
Oh yeah, they
Yeah,
did.
halfway through the lifespan, they removed it because no one was buying the component cables.
Right.
Saved them money.
So yeah, they did remove it. And so yeah, for me personally, I have a CRT setup, as I've mentioned before. And so I finally set that up where I have all component cables. I have the HD Retrovision in there, all kinds of stuff hooked up into a component switcher. And so I have the GameCube cables in there permanently. So if I want to put it on my HD TV, I figured, hey, let me get this thing. I forget how much it was. It was like $100 or something. And I think he's still fulfilling back orders. So basically, you just take it, you plug it into the digital connector.
It's a little button on it. Does that do anything?
I forget what it does. Well, we'll see. But I honestly, top of my head, I forget. And I don't have a GameCube game, so.
Yeah, but we have something even better.
Yeah.
Well, what I have is I have a GameCube player disc in there.
Game Boy player.
Yes, Game Boy player, sorry. And I have my silver Japanese matching player, because I'm anal.
The black came out here, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but in Japan, every single color has it. Even the special limited edition ones came with Game Boy
I
players.
want a
so they
Spice Game Boy player.
They made them.
match. Yep.
Anyway, so here's my my Game Boy EverDrive, and the reason for that is, so I stick it in here, or you might have to switch the.
Bear with us.
Adapter there is actually probably a better alternative than modding the system because the actual mod to get HDMI itself is.
Oh, it was
a little
very,
pricey.
yeah, it was
It's
really
like-
crazy.
not to mention, it's also difficult to install. So
It's
just
retrieving
like,
data. Okay. So here it is. This is the HDMI. It's coming in 480p on the GameCube. So this is the Game Boy player and the EverDrive. So we're going to be playing a hack.
Dun, dun, dun.
Just came out. What is this actually a hack of?
Super Mario Land 2, The Secret of the Six Golden Coins. Some intrepid hacker turned it into a full color palette Game Boy Color game. So that will only run on via a system that can play full clear plastic shell Game Boy Color games, like a Game Boy Color. Or
Was this a different game that they modified into? Was this like a?
it just wasn't color because
Yeah, it was
the original
Oh, so they took the original ROM and just changed it.
They took
Yeah,
an
okay.
original, and they also allegedly changed some of the jump gravity.
Oh, okay.
So when you're in a section with a lot of coins, it doesn't slow down.
Oh yeah, it did lag. I
They did
remember that.
Luigi too, right?
Oh, yes, you
Yes.
can switch to Luigi during the game.
Oh.
So here you have a nice full color.
Ah, there we go. It's me, Luigi.
You can switch mid game too, I think, by
I
hitting
did not
like the
know.
select button.
Yeah, this is probably one of my favorite Mario games. But it's,
Hey, it's me.
Yeah, it looks like he jumps differently. He jumps
might.
higher.
but this game was never in any color. It was never like Game Boy Color Enhanced or even Super Game Boy.
Oh,
It had like a 4-color palette. It
But
had
was
that
always
basic.
gray.
Yeah. It had that. So
This
yeah,
is
this
also
guy
the
turned it
first
Also, I think
into.
they changed the. They used hearts for free lives. They changed it to the green mushrooms
Yes.
because they
oh, so
can
they
now.
changed some other
Yeah,
stuff.
and because back then it was
They had to use hearts.
black
'cause,
and white,
yeah.
so
Oh,
how would
it's
you know the
soft.
difference?
Terrible at this.
Love this.
So, do we have a GameCube game that can?
Oh, so you could.
I forgot to bring a game. Yeah.
Where would you get GameCube?
In a video game store, are there GameCube games here?
Now you can apply this patch
Woo!
to. You have to do it to a very specific version of Super Mario Land 2. It has to be the first full dump. It can't be missing any header information. It can't be like a no intro or a compressed version of the game. It has to be the original Super Mario Land 2 dump.
Is this
I think it's
decent
a
graphical game, you would say.
US and Europe version with an exclamation point in parentheses,
Yeah.
maybe. And even those, there are some versions that it's not compatible with. It took me a few tries to get it going, the patch going, you can apply it with Lunar or Flips, which are both available on rompacking.net.
All right.
Is that the name of the site?
Yes, romhacking.net. All right.
Here we have an HDMI GameCube game.
So all the Melee players can complain about, there's lag input. That's no good. CRTs. I don't know.
40i.
It's not a progressive scan game, I don't think.
Oh. The only one that I know off the top of my head that we don't even have that, because I know Donkey Konga is.
Well, you know, this is going on YouTube. No one's going to be able to really see the graphical fidelity, but I can attest.
Pikmin.
I can attest that this does look really sharp.
Scan compatible. There you go. It's like the last GameCube game, practically. Excitement.
I can tell that they've resurfaced this game.
Yeah, it didn't work.
Because there's that liquid in the middle of
The GameCube games were some of the worst with needing resurfacing.
Yeah.
Get any like scratch or it's still not.
You sneeze on them.
Well, now it's coming in 666 by 448i.
Satan game.
Do you need to change anything like in the system setup?
Oh,
There's
wait,
a
maybe
button
this,
combo you
what
have
does this button do in the back?
But also the GameCube. You have.
Yeah, that's
would
where
you
it's
like
on.
to display in progressive mode? See.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Well, there's a button on the adapter. I don't remember what the button does.
Ah,
We've got a P.
We've got a P.
We've got the P. Oh wow! Yeah,
that
that's
is nice.
definitely quite a change. Yeah.
Because Pikmin actually looks really good. Wow.
Well, now we've got P.
All right.
There's P in our game.
We've got P. I have no idea how to play. What is it? What is these Pikmin? I remember.
It's a puzzle game.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
kind
I
of like a
get
puzzle
Is
game.
it like Lemmings, sort
A
of?
little bit, yeah. Lemmings puzzle game, problem solving. But what it's really good at is pushing the GameCube to its max because they came up with the idea when they're doing demos with the GameCube, showing that it could render multiple models at multiple times.
The Mario, the 180 or 120?
They showed that you could have like over 100 models all running around doing their own thing.
Yeah, it looks nice. It's definitely very clear.
All right.
And
This
last,
game is all about making money.
but certainly not least,
Yeah.
I should do more of it.
I purchased a Pandora's Box Super Gun joystick, which is essentially a JAMA board that has several hundred games running in MAME, which is the go-to arcade emulator. And these things are just churning out of Hong Kong at the moment. I compare them to the Nintendo 64-shaped NES clone joysticks that were flooding mall kiosks in the early 2000s that Nintendo actually put a crackdown on and sued the company into oblivion. I think the people who owned the company actually did serve jail time or had to actually pay a fine or something. But this is, inside of it, it has a JAMA board, so you could pull the board out of this, which is about this big, and put it into a regular JAMA arcade cabinet like you'd find at your local digital press game store, and it'll play.
Turn it on.
It's got two arcade panels on it, two 6-button Street Fighter. This totally licensed Capcom image from Street Fighter 4. It has a cool LED light. I don't know if you could really see it, but that changes color underneath the plastic.
That's very subtle.
It's solid state. It's made of metal on the bottom, and this bulletproof glass on the joystick panel is very solid. It's very, very thick.
Pandora's key.
So it's a Pandora's box or a Pandora's key or they come out of China so quickly. They all have different names, and
Cherry blossoms.
they boot up, and it's just a basic menu system. You can go into the options menu and you can tinker with like some of the settings on the games, how many rounds you want the Street Fighter type games to be, or how many lives,
A lot of games.
or whether or not.
Pages.
Yep, 88 pages, about 900
Wow.
games,
Yeah.
875. Not a lot of
Some of these are
duplicates.
repeats.
Yeah, some repeats, not a lot.
The only problem is not alphabetical order.
Yeah, that is
what?
that's- that is the absolute worst thing
Okay.
about it. Oh,
I'm
look,
gonna
it's
play a game.
Ninja
It's like
Game.
a scavenger hunt.
It is. You really have to memorize where some of these games are located, or have a printout handy, because there's occasionally you'll get a run where they'll put like all the Street Fighter games together, or all the SNK fighting games, or Metal Slug 1 through 5 will be on one page. But then you come to a point where it's like, I don't know, what the organization is like on this. But
Well, like, why is WWF WrestleFest there?
I don't
what else
know.
on this page has to do with wrestling?
so you hit a button and you go into the game, and then it's pretty much like playing a MAME cabinet. You've got, it's got nice HDMI output. It's a plug and play. Everything is ready to go. 2 joysticks.
What game was this?
WWF WrestleFest.
What's taking so long?
I don't know. It has to load. It's a classic. Half of the wrestlers in this are dead, so you know it's good.
Yeah, Jake Roberts.
Um,
Ozzy.
1, 2.
Dead.
That's 4, 5.
Dead.
6.
No, he's still alive.
No, he's Crusher's dead.
Crusher's
Brian
dead.
Adams
Yeah,
is
that's
dead.
6 dead.
He should have been dead, but
Not quite.
Dimebell
That's
saved
6
him.
out of 12. Yeah, you're right.
So half of them are dead.
Jesus Christ.
It's, I haven't noticed any horrible issues with frame rate or audio on most games. Some games that are on here shouldn't be on here. There's a few Sega 16 board games. Space Harrier, Outrun, and... Oh, what else? Afterburner.
The hell did you play Outrun on this?
Those, the system cannot handle it. It's awful. They're just horrific. And there goes Huckster down to the ring. So it's you can, if you poke around, you can find these for about $150 shipped from China. They take a couple weeks to get where they're going. I would advise staying away from the Model 4 versions. Anything Model 5 and above, I think they're on 6 at this point. They've worked out all the kinks. A few games that we've played have issues, but that's the case even with early versions of MAME. You'll get halfway through some arcade games in MAME and it'll crash. That's why there's over 100 versions of MAME going back to the late 90s, where they just keep improving compatibility. So this is some version of MAME where compatibility is not going to be 100% on every game, and they probably haven't tested it thoroughly all the way through, so you'll run into... Mike and I were playing through Ninja Turtles in Time, and on the 6th level there was some graphical issues that prevented us from getting any further. Even the early arcade stuff, like Pac-Man and Donkey Kong and Frogger and Q*bert, runs fine. There is not any huge problems there. They display in the correct aspect ratio. It's not stretched out on the screen. The sounds are all right. So yeah, if you're looking for something that's got a lot of games in it, that you can, either keep set up at your house for a party, or in an arcade room, or in a corner, or in a kid's room, that's pretty idiot-proof. It's almost impossible to break, and even if there's a problem with this, it's got a few screws on the front. You just unscrew those. It's got a hinged cover. You can lift it up. You can fully access the buttons. You can swap out the buttons for nicer, more expensive Sanwa buttons. If you want to swap out the sticks, you could do that. It's all quick release wiring on the JAMA harness, so you can just pull out the wires, put the wires back in. I like it. I was looking for something to bring to our monthly NAVA meetings or bring to my friend. Over the holiday season, I brought it to my friend's house for New Year's Eve, and we played a lot of games. It's fun. They're good. When they first started making them, a little junky, but now we're on to the Model 5, Model 6, and they've worked out, most of the major issues. And it's got some rare stuff on it, some stuff from other regions, from Japan and China, that never came out here.
Yeah.
Gottlieb's Argus. I mean, come on.
Argus!
That's a classic. And then it's got a lot of recognizable stuff. You've got your Pac-Mans, your Mr. Doos, your Donkey Kongs. Oh, here's a Space Harrier. This thing just crawls. Like the audio. Oh boy, it's pretty brutal. I'll play this and then we'll call it a night. But I do recommend these. And they come in a million different variations. You're not likely to find the same one twice. They're all going to have, different kind of art on them. You could probably find this one if you look hard enough, but some of them have King of the Fighters graphics on them. Some of them have Street Fighter. Some of them have, I don't know what, crazy stuff, different colored buttons. I pretty much just...
Does Street Fighter even run on this?
Oh yeah, the CPS games,
Okay.
the Street Fighter. It's got Street Fighter 1, 2, all the hacks. It's got Street Fighter Alpha. It's got Street Fighter 3. It's got every Street Fighter game that appears in arcade.
So why would those run and not Space Harrier?
The Sega 16 hardware must be resource intensive to the point where, I mean, this. If I turn the volume up, the audio is just chugging.
Get ready.
So if you can hear that, you can tell it's pretty slow.
Ready.
But there's a few games like that. But out of 800 plus games,
You're gonna have a few.
stinkers. But the Street Fighter games, up to and including Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, run perfectly. They all are gorgeous. Let's see if I can just find Street Fighter 3.
Yeah. That's not
Good
on
luck.
their S.
59 pages later.
No, it's Alpha 3.
Well, Marvel Capcom, I mean, that's
Wow. Yeah.
Yep.
advanced.
Dodonpachi. Good shooter.
There been that many Strikers 1945 games?
Oh, God. Oh, it's got all the R-types. And this is the one where Leo pilots the ship.
Oh, yeah.
That's what he does on his days off.
Yeah.
He fights the Bido Empire. Okay.
There's Street Fighter 2.
But you're looking
here
for
we
three.
go.
They'd all be the same thing.
So, Street Fighter 3, Third Strike. Now, this is one that even MAME had trouble with for years.
It was the issue was the emulation. It was the encryption. Once they broke the encryption, it was
Right. It's the Japanese version, but that's pretty inconsequential.
Prepare to strike.
How lame is the story, though?
James Bond music.
It's impressive playing with one hand.
I'm losing. I'm losing with one hand. All right. So, yep. There you go. And it's got one switch on the Mac. Turn it off. Throw it in a bag. Take it to your friend's house. Have some fun. All right. So it's 2018. We'll be back with season 5.
Five.
Season 5 in 2018. Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.